Okay, I really do not know where this is going to go, and it is definitely inspired by the trouble that Big Red EDC had with Case, but and I'm not trying to defend Case, and I'm not trying to defend JB. I'm not trying to defend anybody. I'm just going to talk about my own personal experience. And I will start off a little bit with Case, but it's really more about the knife industry in general, and basically, anytime you're buying a traditional pattern knife. And I think one of the things that I need to mention is that a lot of people are coming into traditional pattern knives from the modern knife world. And I think there are different things that modern knife folks look at on a traditional pattern knife than what traditional folks look at. I'll get to that in a little bit, but I do think that let's start with the Case thing. I do believe that Case kind of screwed the pooch with JB, and it has nothing to do with JB having a YouTube channel or anything else. It's the fact that they just did not provide the service that they should have, and maybe some of that was them not being as clear with JB as they should have. I did not see every episode of his trials and tribulations with the Case Company. I guess I should go back and look at those before I go forward with this, but I'm not going to. But now, before I go on to more about JB and his situation with Case, I would like to go over my experience with returning a knife to Case, which happened some time ago. So, really, what happened then may or may not be relevant to what happened with JB, because my experience was almost 10 years ago. And things have definitely changed at Case in the last 10 years. Things have changed in every knife company in the last 10 years. Now, my problem was with a Case canoe, and it was a nice canoe with CV blades and the blade etch and everything else. And when I got it, the blades were actually crossing. The small blade was dropping in front of the large blade, so it was actually cutting across channels. Major issue with it. And the first thing I did was contact the person who sold it to me, which was an Amazon seller. And they said, I'm sorry, I didn't know that was happening. I can refund your money, send the knife back, but unfortunately, I don't have any more. So all I can do is refund your money. I cannot replace the knife. And he said that Case has a warranty, so you could try and contact them if you like to, or I can just refund your money and you can try and buy the knife somewhere else. Where I was not able to see it anywhere else, so I decided to go ahead and contact Case. And when I called Case, the first thing they said is you should contact the retailer and return the knife to them, and they will send you a new one. And I said the retailer said that this was the last one and they could not replace it, but they were willing to refund the money. And I would rather have the knife than the money. And Case said, well, if you want to send it to us, we will repair the knife as long as we can verify that it's one of our knives. And I said, okay. I was like, do you need the box and the paperwork? And they said, no, just all you need to send is the knife. We can verify that it's our knife just by looking at the knife. To make sure it wasn't a counterfeit or anything, and then that they would repair the problem if they deemed it was a problem. I explained what was happening, and they said, "Yeah, that's not right. We should be able to repair that." And so I sent them the knife, and all I did was send them the knife because they told me that's all I needed to send them. And they did say that I would have to pay for the postage to send the knife to them, but they would pay for the postage to send the knife back to me. And they did say it would take 6 to 8 weeks, and it took about 2 or 4 weeks. It wasn't a long time. And the knife came back and it was cleaned and polished and the blades were working correctly and everything else. So I had a very good experience with my return to Case. But even Case told me to begin with, your best bet is to return the knife to the retailer and get a replacement knife. They suggested not sending the knife back, but they would repair it because they do have a warranty. But they actually prompted me to go through the retailer. And ever since then, every time I've had an issue with a knife from Case, I have dealt with the retailer, and the retailer has sent me out a new knife. And I that has happened on one, two occasions. And there was one occasion where I decided I was just going to repair the knives myself. Um, and it's interesting that every issue I've had with a case knife has been with a canoe. Uh, oh, except for one. One was with a Barlow, and that was through SMKW, and they sent me out another Barlow. So someone else may have received the Barlow that I was not happy with. I get that, but I do know that with Shepherd Hills, they say that when they get a knife returned, the knife goes back to case. Now, I don't know if they're telling me the truth or not, but that's what they told me. And I'm assuming that SMKW does the same thing, that the returned items go back to case, or maybe they go into a bargain bin or something. Now, a lot of people have talked about the Rough Riders and the way that basically all you have to do is tell Rough Rider or SMKW that you bought a bad Rough Rider, and they will allow you to keep the bad Rough Rider, and they'll send you out a new one. Well, they will do that up to a certain price point and also up to the number of knives that are bad in the order. So if you've got an order with like 6 or 7 knives in it, one of them was a bad knife, and that knife was basically under like $15 or so, $15, $16, they will tell you to just keep the knife because basically um, it costs them money to pay for the shipping back to them, which is good. They pay for the shipping back. You will get reimbursed on the shipping if there was an issue with the knife, if you had to ship it back. But because of the low price of Rough Rider knives and the profit that they already made off of the knife, um, they see no reason for you to send back a bad knife because what are they going to do with it? They're going to trash it. They're not going to try and repair a $10 or $15 knife. They're just going to it's going to go in a bargain bin or it's just going to go into the trash bin, one of the two, and they're just going to grab another knife off the shelf and send it out to you. And sometimes that other knife off the shelf is going to be good, and sometimes it's going to be a little better than what you got the first time. But that whole keep the knife, we'll send you a new one out has always been based on the price of the knife that they are going to send back to you. So if it's a knife that's in the $20 range, $30 range, you're going to have to send the knife back, and then they will look at it, and then they will make a judgment and send you out another knife. And it's also my understanding that Rough Rider or SMKW is actually cracking down a little bit on its return policies and is expecting more knives to be sent back to them. And I can understand why they're doing that because I have a feeling quite a few people are out there gaming the system. It's like, wow, I'm going to be able to get 2 knives for one. So if I really like a knife and it's really cool, all I have to do is call their folks and say, "Hey, I got a bad knife here," and they're going to say, "Okay, we'll send you out a new one. Keep the old one because we don't need it back." You know, and we know there are people out there who are going to play those games. It's like, wow, this is cool. I'm going to get a free knife out of the deal, and that wasn't what they were doing. So eventually, when you start doing those kind of things, keep the bad knife. We'll send you out a new one. They start catching on, and they start also realizing that this is cutting into our profit. And that is really what kind of drives all of this stuff is like um, your return policies are also driven in by your profit margins because if you have a very generous return policy or repair policy, that can also cut into your profit because people like to game the system, especially these days, it seems. Um, so, uh, losing my train of thought, I'm going to have to come back in just a little bit. Okay, let's get back to JB and his dilemma. First of all, I thought the knife repair was pretty decent, but now I obviously must have a different level or standard of quality than JB does. The knife when it showed up in I did see the gapping issue that he was talking about in the beginning, and I also saw the issues with the blade centering on that RussLock originally, and I thought that they did a pretty decent job of fixing both of those issues. But the fact that the knife came back filthy was a problem, and that should not have happened. And and the fact that the box came back or the knife came back in a crushed box was also a problem. Now, I did not have that issue because basically, when I first contacted Case, they told me just send the knife. We don't need the rest of the stuff. If you want to send it back, that's fine. Whatever you send us, we'll send back to you. But all they really wanted was the knife, so all I sent them was the knife. I did not send them the paperwork. I did not send them the box, so my box did not get crushed. Now, if and it seems to me that is something that Case needs to address. They should be telling the person, look, if you don't want any damage done to your box or paperwork or anything else, um, just send us the knife because all we're going to do is we that's the only thing we need, and we're going to send it back to you in a padded envelope, and your box will get crushed. And if they would tell somebody like that ahead of time, that would solve that issue because once that knife comes back and the box is crushed, you immediately start looking for everything else that's going to be screwed up. So is that a big deal or is that not a big deal? To me, that's part of the customer service experience, and that's really where Case failed in this is in the customer service experience. The next problem that JB ran into with that knife when it came to him was he looked at it and he said the blade centering looked pretty decent, but when he opened it up and his fingers got dirty, well, that was unacceptable. And basically, there you have it. You have strike two. First, the box is crushed. Now the knife is dirty. And these are two things that were easily could have been avoided by Case. Um, First, either they should have told him, look, the box could get crushed. We're going to send it back in a padded envelope. Do not send any of the material. All we need is the knife. Or when the material comes back or the knife comes back with the box and everything else, then they should have sent it back in a box so that it would have been a way to prevent the knife from getting crushed. Um, and who knows if the knife got crushed through the Postal Service or if it got crushed by handling at Case. Either way, the box should not have been crushed. And secondly, the knife is going back. Now the knife has been repaired. So you know that somebody has physically handled this knife. Um, The person who is physically handling that knife should have cleaned it and buffed it out, got everything out of there. He should have been looking at it as this is going to be a present for my grandfather or a present for my grandson. I want this to look as nice as possible. Doesn't matter that it's the same knife that all they did was repair it. I don't have a problem with that, but they should have cleaned it up as if it was going to be given to one of their relatives. That's the way I see that part. Now, as for the gapping along the back, it did not look that bad to me. I'm not JB. I also did not have the knife in my hand. I also know that once you get it under magnification on a camera, you can it's much more noticeable than in with just a naked eye. However, the folks at Case should be looking at it under magnification also to make sure the knife is looking good. To me, I thought the repair work they did was acceptable. Now that is my standard, not JB's standard, not your standards or anything else. And the one of the things that I noticed, like when I had my issue with the Rhino toe, was when I was looking at the return, my second Rhino toe that I got from SMKW. The first one I thought was horrendous. I got the second one. I was being extremely nitpicky at looking at everything. And then the next day, I took a second look at it and I looked at it with fresh eyes, thinking, all right, let's pretend that this is the very first one I got. This is not the one I got after all the issues that I had with the one that I returned and everything else. Because if I to try and give it a more honest look at the knife. And would it have been acceptable if it had been the first knife I received and not the second knife I received? And then I had to honestly say, yeah, this is actually pretty good. It's really if I would have received this the first time, I would have been very happy with it. Now maybe JB would have been very happy with the knife if it had been cleaned and if the box had not been damaged. But if I would have received that knife the first time and it being that filthy and the box being damaged, I would have been starting to be very nitpicky on the knife as well. And so presentation is important, and Case blew it with the presentation there. Okay, so now what do I think we should be doing as a community when we're purchasing knives and when we run into a knife with a problem. Um, well, first of all, I've mentioned in a couple places that when it comes to knives that are priced under $50, I think the knives that have the best quality control and also the best return policies is probably Victorinox, the folks who make Swiss Army knives. Yeah, you have to pay to have the knife shipped to them, but you can ship them old knives and they will repair them, um, even very old knives. And usually there's not much of a charge for it. And if a blade needs replacing, they might replace the blade. So if you're worried about that tank stamp might change and stuff like that. But for the most part, they'll even repair very old knives and get them back to you. And when you get it back, it's cleaned and polished and everything else. I mean, many of people have commented that it is better than what you get from one of the clam packaged Swiss Army knives you get out at the big box store. So um, definitely they know what they're doing when they're talking about repairing a knife. And also, it's very rare that I cannot, no, I have yet, I have well over 200 Swiss Army knives, and I have yet to run into one that had an issue when bought brand new. Now, when it comes to returning a knife, just about every retailer, or I'm sorry, every knife manufacturer I know um, advise you if you receive a product new that is bad, return it to the retailer for either a refund or replacement. That's what I have contacted a few, and every one of them has said the same thing. Return it to the retailer for refund or replacement. Um, I had a bad experience with Bear and Son, but even Bear and Son said the same thing. They said that return the knife to the retailer for refund or reimbursement. Um, and I told them, well, I can't return it because I want the knife and this is the only one I have. And it was basically blade rub. The pivot was rubbing, and they said it would work itself out. And I got kind of upset with them. They basically advised me not to send it to them because they didn't see that as an issue and that it would work itself out over time. It's still working itself out over time. But they told me at the time, if you're not satisfied with it, return it for a refund or a replacement knife through the retailer that I bought it at. Well, the retailer could not replace it, but they could have refunded the money. I decided to keep the knife. So any problem with it really comes back to me. And it seems to me that is usually what the manufacturers will tell you to do when you're purchasing a new knife. They will tell you if there's an issue with it, return it to the retailer where you bought it from for a refund or a replacement knife. And that is my advice to anyone who is having these issues. If at all possible, um, you should contact the retailer where you bought it from and not the manufacturer. But if you do contact the manufacturer, you're going to need to follow their rules and they're going to have to jump through their hoops. And most of the time, that will mean that you're going to pay for the postage for the knife to be sent to them, and it might take some time for the repair or replacement to take place. Um, so those are things that you need to expect from it. And every knife company is going to have different quality control levels. So what you expect from the knife may not be what the knife company quality control level is. Now, looking at the knife that JB got from a case to begin with, I do not believe that was up to their quality control standards. I do believe the knife that he received back from them was to their quality control standards, other than the fact that the box was crushed and the blades were all filthy, and that was especially unacceptable when you're dealing with a knife that has been sent to you for repair because that just makes everything else look like crap. But again, all I have seen is what the knife looked like on YouTube. I have not seen the knife in hand, so I can't really say if the quality was there that it should have been, because, but JB can, and I trust what he is saying. And I think he was very dissatisfied with the experience, and I would have been very dissatisfied with that experience as well, because it really did appear that Case really didn't care. It was like, that person at the DMV who snapped your picture with your mouth open, and it's like, it's good enough. And that was the impression I got when I saw the knife. It's like, this is good enough, toss it back in the box and ship it out. And that's the picture I get in my mind when I see that box and when I see the filthy blades and everything else, regardless of the fact that the knife was in better shape now than when it went back to them. Now, I have mentioned before that basically quality control and these kind of things, customer service and everything, is also profit driven. This is all up to the bean counters. If the bean counters say that this level of quality is going to be the most profitable level, then that's the level that they're going to be at. And if the bean counters feel that this level of customer service is optimal for profit, then that is where it's going to be at. Uh, and my thought is, because of the brouhaha that has been stirred up in the knife community, at least among knife collectors, they might take a look at what is being said here. They may not. I don't know. Uh, but it would help to, if you have made one of these videos, share it on the various knife channels on Facebook and anywhere else. So, like I like to put a link over to SMKW Army so that other people see these things, so they see what's going on. Usually it's because I got a new product and I don't want to show it off, but this is also something that really needs to be addressed. And if people like, not necessarily Case, but if Shepherd Hills sees this, and if Red Hill sees this, SMKW sees this, and they start seeing that people are not as happy with Case, and they are the major distributors of Case, they will have more impact on getting Case to straighten up and fly right a little bit, and possibly get their quality control levels, get their tolerances up a little higher, and everything else. But as for what they should be doing right now, um, is they need to get a system in place, especially when you're dealing with items that have been returned. Now, if you saw my video on my Vine Messer by Boker, I pointed out that inside that box it said something like inspected by, and then it had a number on there or something like that, similar to those inspected by stickers that you would see on in packages of underwear and stuff back in the, 10, 15 years ago. Maybe they even still do it. But you'd always get that little slip in there that said inspected by 152 or inspected by so and so. Now, there are some knife companies that actually do something similar to that, where they will have, this knife was made by, and it'll have a signature, and this knife was inspected by, blah, blah, blah. That is what Case should be doing with its repair shop. They should have somebody in there who is doing the repairs, and they should have somebody who is inspecting it. And you should be able to actually, and that information, maybe they do have that happening now. I don't know, but they have not let us know they have that happening. And that would be light years ahead of just sending the knife back in a crushed box in a padded envelope, all dirty. Because if a person had to actually say, I fixed your knife, and have their name there, or, even a number 12. Uh, I checked this knife's repair and found it acceptable, inspector, number 132, whatever it is. If they were doing that with these knives, then those people would be held accountable. It would be much easier to hold that person accountable. And also people would know who did the work. And so, JB would be saying, I don't know who Inspector Joe Blow is, but he really blew it on this one because this knife still sucks. And then Case would be able to say, okay, Inspector 132, how come you screwed up on this knife? And the same thing with the knives that are going out. Every knife should have like an inspection sticker in there. It's kind of like those stupid little yellow arrows for the Rockwell testing on frost knives. Yeah, it's a little bit of a gimmick, but I tell you what, if Case were to put in the box, this knife was made by, this knife was inspected by, um, and just a number, and you could actually say, "Hey, I got this knife. It was made by so and so, and it was inspected by so and so, and it's got a gapping issue, or the blade is way off center or something." Case would be able to identify where their problems are, and they would be able to fix it. Now, maybe they already do that in-house. I don't know. But if they are doing that in-house, they should be letting us know. And that would help a whole lot with people thinking about Case knives. And the same thing with any other company out there who is making products. If you can if you hold that person accountable either by number or something, and you hold the inspector, the foreman of that shop accountable uh, publicly, you will see quality go up. That's my thoughts on it. Um, and most places have ways of doing that. They should know who's running that line at that particular time, and who turned out the Russlocks that day, who turned out the Stockmans that day. That information should be there, and we should be able to know it. And so, you know, to me, that would help a whole lot with fixing issues at Case or any other company out there, especially Bear& Son. I would like to know who glues the shields on Bear& Son knives. I would love to know who glues the shields on Frost knives and what they're using to do it with, because obviously they always fall off on me. But any case, this has been a really, really long ramble. I hope you enjoyed the pictures that I put up while I was doing this. Um, but I thought this was probably the easiest way to do this quickly and get it out. And sorry it took so long. Oh, and just one last thing, and that is that profit is a good thing. That is what keeps a company going. So if a company is not making a profit, it's not going to be sticking around for very long. So we have to understand why the bean counters exist and why certain policies exist and why certain quality control levels exist. It's because that is the level that somebody along the way has decided is what is necessary in order to make the optimal profit in order for the company to survive. Um, is that always a good thing? Well, I don't know. But if it looks like the optimal profit is going to suffer because of the current trend um, within the company or within the market, then the trend will change. Um, will these kind of videos change that trend? I have no idea. But I do know that in the end, almost every company out there wants to hear what their customers think. Um, so I would strongly urge you to contact the companies, but be respectful when you're doing it. No one wants to hear a rant. No one wants to hear you yelling and screaming. But if you can point out legitimate concerns, they will listen.